The Trailblazers would not be in Portland if not for Paul Allen. He saved them in the 90s. He saved them again in the early 2000s.
High praise for a local icon. We're all waking up this morning dealing with the news that Paul Allen has died. He owned the Trailblazers, the Seahawks, and part of the Seattle Sounders. Paul Allen also co-founded Microsoft and was a driving force in rebuilding neighborhoods throughout the Northwest.
I want to check in now again with reporter Cor Harlan. He's been covering this story all morning, and Cor's lived here long enough to understand Allen's legacy. Cor?
Right. You know, this all began back in really before 1980, but 1980 was a definitive time for Paul Allen and Bill Gates when IBM chose Microsoft to provide the operating software for something that was new at the time in 1980 called a personal computer that IBM was in the process of making. And the rest of that is history. In 1988, Allen used the fortune that he had amassed in just those 8 years to purchase the Trailblazers. He's owned the Trailblazers 30 years. It really doesn't seem like all that long, but he has owned the Trailblazers for 30 years. And in the intervening years since he bought the Trailblazers, he's used a great portion of his time essentially to give his money away. By some estimates, as much as $2 billion he's given away to charities affecting everything from the ocean to homelessness to local charities, both in the Portland and the Seattle area. You mentioned he purchased the Trailblazers. He also purchased the Seattle Seahawks that have had a great deal of success. And he leaves quite a legacy. No wife, no children, just family, brothers and relatives. And how his estate will be settled out and parceled up is still to be determined. But, you know, for a lot of us who heard this news yesterday, the sudden passing of Paul Allen, it came as a big surprise, as it did to the former television voice of the Trailblazers, Mike Barrett, who was the television voice of the Blazers for the 17 years.
Oftentimes when we would sit down to do an interview, my first questions would not be about the NBA. They'd be about rock and roll or space or oceanography.
So there is a guy there, not your typical NBA owner, who had a lot of interest in a lot of things, including, as Mike mentioned there, space travel, oceanography, rock and roll, just a lot of different things that he was interested in, a lot of different things that he spread his money out on. Of course, he initially defeated this non-Hodgkins lymphoma back in 2009. He announced earlier this month that that disease had made a return, and we, of course, all just found out that he passed away sometime Monday afternoon in Seattle. A great shock to a lot of people here in the Northwest, and really, Jenny and Ken, for a lot of people around the world who are impacted by his generosity.
Yeah, and dying at 65, that's young these days. So rest in peace, Paul Allen. You did a lot for us here in Portland and for the Northwest in general. Thanks, Cor. As you can imagine, reaction is pouring in from all over. Trailblazer star Damian Lillard, who had a special relationship with Allen, tweeted out this simple statement upon learning of Allen's death: "Rock bottom will teach you lessons that mountaintops never will." Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson tweeted, "We have lost a friend and a giant. Mr. Allen, thank you for your extraordinary vision, your abundant generosity, and for believing in all of us. By your example, you made us all better, kinder. May you rest in peace." And Oregon Senator Ron Wyden tweeted out his condolences. All of #RipCity mourns today. Paul Allen loved our @Trailblazers with every fiber of his being. Oregonians are so grateful for Paul and his extraordinary legacy. You can read much more reaction